How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and in this video we're going to focus on Invest 94L and determine the chance this does develop into Tropical Storm Bonnie and impacts the Caribbean and potentially develops into Hurricane Bonnie in the more long-term future. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin. I'll take a look at the 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook provided from the National Hurricane Center, and we do see that now Invest 94L is more likely to form, with now a 60% chance within the next 5 days. It's currently considered a moderate chance, but a 60% chance of course means that there's a higher probability that this does develop into at least a tropical depression or tropical storm. So it is definitely a big jump when it comes to the probability from yesterday, which is just like I forecasted, because it seemed like the conditions right around the Caribbean would be very favorable for tropical cyclone development, and that seems to be the case, as it's expected to move westward and likely will develop into Tropical Storm Bonnie. Now, taking a look at the water vapor imagery, we do see that it's still a fairly disorganized area of showers at this point. You see that there isn't really a well-defined center of circulation where all that convection is going on. So as a result, at least for the for the short-term future, this isn't likely to develop into a tropical storm. But of course, beyond the 48-hour mark, we're gonna begin to see that thunderstorm activity really blow up right around center circulation, which should allow it to have a much higher chance of developing into a tropical depression or tropical storm. Of course, also it's due to the fact that the wind shear is lighter than average right now over the main developed region, as well as the lack of dry air, as dry air isn't expected to be an inhibiting factor for this storm. So it's gonna take some time to really find that center of circulation and that where that thunderstorm activity will be maximized, but it is expected to develop as the conditions become more favorable once this heads towards the Caribbean. So if we were to take a look at the latest computer model guidance, it is a little bit concerning, because not only does the GFS model want to take a tropical storm as early as Thursday of next week, but we also could see a hurricane develop into this in the more long-term future, where we see the pressure drop down to the 960s, as it's just off the Central American coast at this time. Now, there's still a high amount of uncertainty, because look at the forecast hour I'm going at, but it is definitely concerning, because the conditions just seem very favorable for tropical cyclone to gradually intensify throughout the southern Caribbean, which is quite rare for this early part of the hurricane season, where we typically don't see tropical cyclones develop in the main developed region and move westward and develop this rapidly. We need to see if this holds up, but I can tell you that it's definitely not looking good, because if I were to show you guys the upper level winds that are expected, you see that for the most part wind shear will be fairly light throughout the Caribbean. And if I were to move even more backwards, you see that while the wind shear is currently hindering this low pressure system just a little bit as a result of the existence of this upper level high, you see that the wind shear is expected to subside as this upper level high pretty much dissolves and moves eastward. So the wind shear will become very light for the storm to really organize itself and for all that convection to focus in right around center circulation. So that is definitely a major concern. Now, take a look at what the European model is forecasting when it comes to the amount of wind shear as of the 0Z run. You see that the European model is expecting a little bit more wind shear, which is the reason why the European model isn't as lenient as strengthening it as much. But we still do see that the European model wants to take a hurricane making landfall somewhere in between one of these Central American countries, which is definitely a pretty major concern if you're along Central America. And there is that possibility we could see this turn a little bit northward, maybe into the Gulf of Mexico, to where it could have the rebirth. The GFS model has been leaning towards that idea a little bit more. If we were to take a look at that, you see that this moves into the Gulf of Mexico and re-strengthens and You're probably wondering if this could move north to the United States. It's still far too early to tell because the forecast hour at this point is at 276 hours. So there's still a lot of things that could change. We really need to see if there will be a weakness in ridging right around the northern United States to really steer this towards the north. At this point, the GFS model is forecasting that a ridge will build over the United States, so this would steer this storm westward, but we can't either rule out the fact that maybe there won't be as strong of a ridge, so we'll see this so precious and move a little bit northward. So that's suddenly a pretty big concern. And you see that even as this has closer to Central American countries, wind shear is still very light. And we do have a little bit of an upper level high that's just over this storm, which is allowing for a nice level of divergence in the upper levels of the atmosphere to induce more convection, which is suddenly a pretty major concern. Now taking a look at the moisture levels as well. Look, there isn't really any sort of dry air that's going to inhibit this storm, which is definitely unfortunate, as now the GFS model is leaning towards less dry air to really inhibit this storm than before, which is the reason why part of the reason why the chance did increase for the probability of Tropical Storm Bonnie, as it seems like pretty much almost everything's going to go in its favor. The sea surface temperatures are much warmer than average. We're also seeing not much dry air or wind shear, so this does have an open lane to develop in the Caribbean, which is the reason why I'm stating that this is most likely going to develop into Tropical Storm Bonnie. Now, probably a bigger concern is the track forecast, because of course we need to see if this could move northward into the Caribbean islands, potentially towards Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, or Haiti, or maybe even Jamaica. And we also need to see where this could potentially make landfall if this were to develop into a tropical storm or hurricane as this approaches Central America. So taking a look at the steering currents, let's take a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly to really determine where the ridges will be located. So let's take a look at the steering currents right now. There is a ridge located in this region. You probably can't tell because this area isn't shaded in the oranges or the reds, but there is a ridge located in this region, and its pressure is right around average for this time of the year. So it's pretty much an average ridge, and it's steering this towards the Caribbean. And the fact that this is not in a that the air pressure isn't higher than normal, like in this area for northward, actually is helping this storm because it isn't moving as fast. And of course, during the early part of the hurricane season, especially, the reason why tropical cyclones don't typically develop in the main developed region in the early part of the hurricane season is because a lot of these troughs move too fast to really organize themselves. This won't be the case since this ridge isn't necessarily weak, but it isn't necessarily strong either. So it's at an optimal wind speed to where it'll strengthen as it heads towards the Caribbean. But moving forward again with the track forecast with this storm, we do see that there is a little bit of a weakness, but is in ridging, but it isn't enough to steer this northward, which is unfortunate. So we're going to continue to see this ridge steer this towards west, and what's really going to be the difference on how far north this turns is how far south this jet stream dip will go throughout the United States as this trough moves through. At this point, it seems likely that the southern track will be the more likely track, so we won't see direct impacts towards the Caribbean islands, but I wouldn't rule out the chance that maybe this trough dips a little bit southward and we see this turn a little bit northward, which will not only be more of a concern for the Caribbean, but the United States coast as well, where maybe this turns a little bit northward and puts the United States more at risk. We're going to need to see how far south this trough dips, but even if this trough doesn't necessarily dip very far southward and this takes a southern track, there's still another opportunity to where it could move north with this trough right here if this trough ends up moving a little bit further south than expected, which is still a possibility because forecasting something around 7 to 8 days out, there's still a lot that could change. So we need to wait and see how the ridges as well as the troughs will maneuver themselves throughout the United States to really determine how far north or south this will move. But I'll keep you guys updated once we get a little bit more certainty regarding the track forecast. Now, taking a look at the current ensemble members that's forecasting the track that's pretty much estimating where this storm will go, or the strength of this storm. You see that the storm is pretty much, for the most part, expecting us to take the southern track, with most ensemble members going that direction. However, we still do see a couple of ensemble members going a little bit further northwards, where it's directly impacting the Dominican Republic, Haiti, as well as Jamaica. So we can't rule out the chance that maybe this moves a little bit northward. At this point, the more likely scenario is a southern track, but just be aware of this in the Caribbean islands, because that's certainly a possibility this could move northward as well. Now, taking a look at the strength forecast, it's suddenly concerning, because we do see a decent amount of ensemble members want to take this to hurricane strength. We see around 5 ensemble members wanting to take this to hurricane status, while the other ensemble members, while a decent amount of them still maintain this to stay at tropical storm strength. It's you have to keep in mind, with the model intensity guidance, they typically do underestimate the strength of tropical cyclones a lot in the future. So this could easily be higher than that. We could easily see potentially a tropical cyclone that's stronger than what you see right here, which is definitely a major concern. Now, taking a look at my forecast when it comes to the track of potential tropical storm Bonnie, you do see that I'm favoring a southern track as well, but you see that even if this were to take the further northward track, you'd still get a decent amount of impacts throughout Hispaniola and potentially direct impacts into Jamaica. So you need to pay close attention to that throughout the Caribbean. And keep in mind that only 2/3 of the time tropical cyclones stay within the cone of uncertainty. So there's still that 1/3 of a chance that this could completely jump out of the cone, which would definitely create a bigger uncertainty with the forecast. So you need to be aware that the cone is very uncertain. So just make sure to keep that in mind. We're gonna need to see if this takes a track for a northward. I'll keep you guys updated, but we'll also need to check if the strength over the next couple of days is a dry air. But it seems likely we will see tropical storm Bonnie in the future. But anyways, guys, I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content, and I hope you guys all have a great day.